which is on leveraging media in revitalizing education in Africa. And it is handled by Isabella Adediji. Okay, I can see that she has joined us back. Hi, Isabella. Hello, Isabella, can you hear me? Oh. Okay, we can't hear you, Isabella.
Okay, I've unmuted myself, okay. So can you hear me now?
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Yes, yes.
My name is Isabella Adediji, as I've been introduced. Happy International Day of Education 2021, and well done to Fresh Look Africa for organizing this. I think it's very important. Having gone through the pandemic and still living in the pandemic, it's more important and it's become pertinent for us to look at ways to innovate in Africa, ways to innovate to ensure that we're not just leaving our children, our students behind. So when I was invited to speak on a topic like this, leveraging the media, I was really excited because I find it very hard to choose between my love for education and my love for the media, because I just see the two of them intertwined. And for me, I'll just start with sharing my story, and then I'll go into how we can leverage the media and then take questions. I know it's been a long day, so I'm mindful of the time. It's 4:45 now, and I know we're aiming to finish by 5:35, or is it 5:25? Okay. I believe. So I'll leave enough time for questions. So growing up—
5:25.
Yeah, 5:25. So I have about how many minutes? 15 plus 25, that's 40 minutes. Yes, so I'll probably leave 15 minutes for questions. So growing up, I wanted to be many things, different things. I remember a day I went to the bookshop and I just loved the fact I could pick out different books, and I thought I'll grow up and become a bookseller, work in a bookshop. Then another time, I was just fascinated with how you can buy a chicken and the chicken will lay eggs, and then you can sell the chicken and sell the eggs. So at a point I was thinking of becoming a market woman to also sell chicken and eggs. And then I thought of becoming a teacher. I thought of going on TV. I thought of becoming a doctor. I thought of becoming several things. And that's one of the things that I took away from last session, is that you don't have to be limited to what you can be. There's no one saying that you can't be anything and everything. Maybe not at the same time, but definitely you can explore different professions. So in my young mind, I couldn't really settle on what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I enjoyed the media, I enjoyed questions, I enjoyed learning in school, and I have to give that to my teachers, because they encourage that passion for learning, that passion for education, and they would allow me to, even sometimes I'll say, oh, I'm so excited, I really enjoyed this class, can I teach the class? And the teacher will be like, yeah, go ahead. So along the lines, I finished from secondary school here in Nigeria, and I went to the UK to do my A-levels. And for A-levels, I knew that I was very interested in performing arts. So I wanted to go into entertainment. I wanted to act in movies, be on TV. I used to say I wanted to revolutionize the entertainment industry. And I ended up doing history, government and politics, performing arts, and English literature. And then I applied to university. And the first time I applied, even though I was predicted 4 A's, I applied to about 6 different universities, and 5 of them turned me down. So, and I was applying for different things like English and English and drama, English literature, drama, English and publishing. So I had to sit it out, because the university who gave me an offer, I wasn't really interested in going, and the requirements were only 2 B's and a C. So I sat it out, I took a gap year, and my results came out and I had 4 A's. So I decided to apply again to university, and this time any university would make me an offer because I already had my results. Because if you're in the UK and you're doing A-levels, usually they work with predicted grades. They look at your first year of A-levels, what results did you get? And they use that to predict what you'll get for A2. And then they make you an offer, which is conditional based on if you make the A's. So had my 4 A's, and I started thinking again that, oh, Isabella, what do you really want to do? Are you sure it's just English because I liked writing, I liked communication? Are you sure it's just drama because I liked acting? And then I started thinking again, like, okay, I like these two things, but I also like teaching. I also like education. I like edutainment. I think about my childhood, and I think about some shows that definitely left a mark on me, or left an impression at an early age. When I think about the Nigerian programs I watched as a child, I think of Speak Out, which involved debating. I also, oh, you can't hear me well. Okay, I'll increase my voice. I've increased the volume on my phone. Thanks for letting me know. So I think about Speak Out. I think about Kiddie Vision. In America, when I was there briefly for about a year and a half, I think of Wishbone, I think of Author, I think of Reading Rainbow. So I started thinking, okay, why don't I combine my love for education with my love for drama, the media? And that was how I ended up studying education with English and drama at the University of Cambridge. And my first and second year, I got to do drama modules. I got to do English modules. And my third year was strictly education. But I still found myself finding ways to pursue that love for edutainment. So taking modules in film studies, looking at the reading culture for my dissertation, and just exploring my love for education at the same time, drama. And then I came back to Nigeria after graduation, and I started working in corporate communications at a multinational. And I got to do the things I loved, communications, right? Editing a magazine, going on trips, trainings. It was a big company, lots of opportunities. But somewhere inside, after a few years, I started feeling very uneasy, feeling very unsettled. And I just thought, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? Writing public PR, press releases, inviting the media for events, collaborating with brands, or do I want to do more? And I saw that even though I was working 9 to 5, I still had time to be doing red carpet hosting, to still be doing a bit of writing, freelance work. So I made the decision in 2015 to quit my job and become a teacher. And I left the job. I started teaching part-time in 2 different schools. I taught English literature, English language, history, government and politics, and English IELTS. So I taught in a secondary school and an A-level school. But even during that time in the classroom, I still found myself yearning to go back into the media. And I thought, how can I combine my love for education and my love for the media?
Both.
And that was where I started thinking, okay, Isabella, you've done a bit of media work. You've been on radio, you've been on TV, because as far back as 2008, I had a segment on Silverbird TV where I reviewed books called Bookaholic with Bella. And I also went on to take part in Radio Superstar. So I just started thinking, and I said, okay, I really enjoy teaching. I enjoy the student community, but I also love the media. And teaching in a classroom, you have to be in class on certain days. Maybe jobs might come up, you might not be able to take it. So I left the classroom, and not immediately. I started coming up with my show while I was still a teacher. And I just started thinking, okay, what can I combine? Okay, I love books. I love reading. So let's have a magazine show what is something that would be interesting to both adults and young children as well, like the whole family. And that's why I started thinking, okay, spelling, that's something that you go for a spelling bee, and even the adults are cracking their heads. How do you spell this? Or pronunciation, how do you pronounce a word? Is it the American pronunciation, the British pronunciation? Then I thought about countdowns, thought about book reviews, and eventually interviews. And that was how I started Africana Literati, which is a book review magazine show that teaches spelling, pronunciation, the Afrocentric top 5 countdowns. We even have in season 4 tongue twisters. And the show has aired on Africa Magic. It's also aired on Mindset Channel, which a lot of us are familiar with, on DSTV and on some streaming platforms. And that has just opened me up to the power of the media, because all of a sudden I started receiving feedback from people that were old and young. I mean, I went to visit my friend in Uganda, and we went to her her grandparents' village, and they didn't have the internet, but they had DSTV, and I got to actually watch my program. And later on, her grandfather, who is in his 90s, said, "Oh, I'm one of your students." And it just showed me how, you know what, with the media, you can reach people in villages, you can reach people that are old, people that are young, you can reach so many people. And education doesn't have to just be boring, like you just stand in front of the blackboard or whiteboard and you're just dictating. We all know that studies have shown that the teacher is more of a facilitator, and learning should be child-centered. So I started thinking of ways that I could create other programming to address this needs. Who are some people that might never have that opportunity to be in my physical classroom? I might not go back to the classroom again, but still I can reach out to them. And that was where Africana Literati started, the radio show, Correct Students, which ran for about 3 years. We only stopped during the lockdown, and then the YouTube aspect of Correct Students, as well as the Instagram Live. And for me, when the pandemic struck, it just became really really pertinent and important, just the power of the media, because you had parents who were stuck at home, children who were stuck at home because of the lockdown. They couldn't get any training. Some parents were open to going to do homeschooling, but they didn't have the resources. Where do I start from? What do I do? Some schools were totally unprepared. So they started looking at the internet. They started doing Google searches. They started watching YouTube videos. They switched on their TV. In a state like Lagos, I know the Lagos state government really jumped on the power of the media, because you had lessons being taught on state-owned television and radio stations. So you could tune into your TV or your radio, and you could actually see your teacher teaching different subjects. And of course, we know foreign channels like Mindset. So just by having the tools of the media, some people were still able to get an education. And very recently, Teach for Nigeria, an organization that I feel like I'm a part of their story, maybe because their CEO is a dear friend and sister, but I've hosted several events for them. I've done work for them. And recently they launched the Teach for Nigeria radio school. And what was very instructive is that we all know that the statistics for out of school children are as high as 14 million students in Nigeria. And even some of the students that are in school, how many of them are getting that quality education? How many of them can afford to go to schools where they have enough resources? The teachers have been well trained, the infrastructure is there, the provision in terms of the seating, you don't have leaking roofs, you have a very conducive environment. It's not there for everyone. But you see, the media is sort of a leveler, because anyone who has access to the media has an opportunity to get that learning. It doesn't matter whether you're sitting there in your house, AC is blowing you, or you're outside getting fresh air and you're listening to your radio. Is the same quality of teaching that you're getting. And was really instructive, because some of their research that was carried out was that during the lockdown, you had numbers as high as 90% of children that are being excluded from receiving any form of education. So teachers started becoming very innovative. What can I do to still reach my students? Students that are still going to resume and write exams. And they started thinking about their media tools. Some teachers resorted to WhatsApp. Some teachers resorted to recording videos and sending to their students. Some teachers used online platforms like the one we're on now, Zoom. Some teachers went to watch programs on TV. Some teachers recommended radio shows. And we've seen that radio, for example, is something that is not, I'll call it a no respecter of persons, because even without, say, electricity, a DSTV subscription, you can use your 2G phones, you can tune into the radio, you have your regular radio set. If you're in a car, you can tune into radio. Some DVD players come with that radio function. So if you take a walk down the street, you probably see people listening to their radio, either maybe the malams, the security guards, people who run small businesses like, say, salons, kiosks. They are listening to their radio. And that's an opportunity for their children to also receive that kind of teaching. So the media is something that I believe that as educators, we need to start plugging into it, especially in Africa, because one of the things that I saw happen during the pandemic was the fact that a lot of what people were doing in the West were just ready to copy and paste. Okay, this is how they are doing it, virtual learning. There's all sorts of technology available where the lecturer is just standing in a room, and all of a sudden you're just seeing different faces of different students tuning in from different places. How many people can afford that technology? Not so many people. But you can already start thinking about your phone. If you use your phone, you can think of your Instagram live. You can use your phone to record videos that will go up on a YouTube channel. You can use your phone to record a podcast that you can easily send. You can even do voice notes. You can take pictures with your phone of your lesson notes or explanations. There are so many ways that we can leverage the media. And I think it's important that we look at what we have in Africa. We know that internet penetration is still very low. Yes, you might live in a place like Lagos or Abuja or Port Harcourt or Kano, but even within these very urban cities, you'll go to places where you'll be struggling to even find 3G. You'll be struggling to find LTE. You might only see GPRS. You might not get as a strong data connection when you're thinking about how do I do videos. So that's where, again, that audio comes in, because then you know that you can easily transmit that. And that's where the opportunities come in, that we in Africa have to really look at. Okay, we might not be able to go back to schools as soon. For example, schools were meant to resume by the first week of January, and then we saw that delay to, I believe it was the 18th of January before schools were able to resume. So what could have been done during that period? What resources could we have provided for students, provided for families to continue that learning progress? What ways could we be innovative as educators using the media? So it's for us to go back, I believe, to the drawing board to say, okay, I gave the example of growing up as a child, consuming educational media and how that has influenced me. It was some of the programming that I saw as a child, Speak Out, Reading Rainbow, Kiddie Vision, that left such a lasting impression that many years later, I found myself creating edutaining content. Another thing that I can think of readily, which has become very popular amongst people across the world, is your little videos, your skit videos. Think about it. People will say, oh, I don't have money for data, but then you see them scrolling on Instagram and they're watching these reels, they're watching these skits, they are spending time. Before you know it, you've spent an hour and you've watched like maybe 20 different skits, you've read the comments, you've gone back to check the creator, watched another video, saved it, or even on WhatsApp, somebody sends you a video, you forward it. Now, can we begin to think of creating content like educational skits? Not necessarily people acting, but you can take a topic and turn that topic on its head. I mean, let's take, for example, political education, something that affects each and every one of us. You might think, oh, I don't have any business with politics. I don't have any business with the way this country is run. But the truth is we all have that power. And if we don't start learning from a young age the power that we have as citizens in a democracy, then we'll continue to leave people that we don't really trust to make the decisions of this country. We might complain for all we want that education is not receiving the kind of budget and attention, but what are we doing as people? And I believe that as educators, that burden is on us. So take, for example, a very topical subject, politics. Another one is sports, which is under physical education. Another one is your entertainment, which you can find aspects of it under literature. What are ways that we can begin to repurpose that content? And by the time we play it to a wider audience, all of a sudden it's, oh, nobody, I'm not really seeing a textbook. I'm not really seeing a teacher. What I'm getting is valuable information. And before you know it, your children, your students, even adults are learning. So what ways can we take aspects of our curriculum and turn it into content that is consumed, content that I like to call it edutaining, that it's educational, but at the same time entertaining? Because if you were to ask people to forward something, let's say they had to choose between forwarding lesson notes or forwarding a 30-second explainer video or maybe a 5-minute IGTV video on a topic like, say, Pythagoras theory, but you've made it very interesting. So when I think about Pythagoras theory or maybe the different types of triangles, I remember a movie where they used basketball to describe the different types of angles that you have in a triangle, your isosceles, your equilateral triangle. So I think it's really up to us to say, okay, what is going to move in the media? It has to be entertaining. It has to be valuable for the person who is spending their data, their electricity, even their battery power, making sure that their radio sets are tuned or their phone batteries are up just so they can tune in. It has to be valuable. It has to be packed with information. But at the same time, it needs to be disseminated in a way that the final consumer, be it a student, an adult, is able to get something out from it. So I think the pandemic has provided an opportunity for us to go back and rethink what we can do with the media. The media is not just for, in Nigeria, Big Brother, where everybody gets very excited and they're spending lots of money sending text messages. The media can also be a place where learning can happen. When I think about educational programming on TV, I really struggle. I only see maybe your Cowbellpedia, your InterSwitch Spark, and I mentioned Africana Literati. You have your Turtle Tidal. These are available on DSTV, GoTV platforms. But if I was to start mentioning different movies and series, I would spend a good 10 minutes or more mentioning different kind of content that is available. Okay, I missed out one. Sim Shagaya is creating content, U-Lesson. That was very helpful too, again, which had a lot of educators coming on screen to go through aspects of the curriculum and make it interesting. But who are the people that are going to create this content? Who are the people that are going to be innovative and take initiative to ensure that it's not just the big brothers and the big series and the big movies that are dominating the media? It's us, it's the educators. So my question to you is, as educators, as much as we're sharing content, we're sharing skits, we're sharing WhatsApp broadcasts, how much are we also being innovative with the content we have as educators to ensure that we populate that space? It might not be as easy to do a fully fledged 30-minute TV production that you invest sometimes millions, and then after that you have to think about airtime, think about schedule, think about marketing. But all of us know that the internet has democratized things. We now have social media, which is a form of the media, and really with just an internet connection, and you sign up to any of these social media sites, you already have a platform to start sharing knowledge. Your Facebook is there, your Twitter is there, your Instagram Live, YouTube Live. If we don't take up that opportunity to say to ourselves, well, we don't have as many educative programming, and we cannot continue to wait for traditional schooling to catch up. How many years is it going to take us to build the number of schools that are required? How many years is it going to get us to change the perception of teachers, the mindset of teachers, to raise the standards in our teacher training colleges? It might take 10 years, it might take a century, it might take 1,000 years for all these things to happen with the predicted population growth. But it's still up to us to say, what can I do now? And I'm really using this opportunity to challenge each and every one of us as innovators. We all know that our children are very tech savvy. Most of them know how to operate phones. A lot of them know how to operate devices without ever being taught. You see a 2-year-old, 3-year-old being able to navigate, take pictures, go and play things. So what are we doing to provide content? What are we doing to address the situation of the high out of school children? So if they are, for example, in their mother's shops during the lockdown, or the schools have not yet resumed during the holiday, but they can tune into a radio show that's been created, or even a podcast, or even voice notes that you can play to them that they can listen. Who are the people who are going to leverage the media to create content in local languages? Not everybody understands English, and it's going to take time even for some of the students that are some of our children who are out of school to be able to catch up. Some of them have gone into early marriages and they might never go back to school, especially when you look at the culture and the factor of religion in the northern parts of the country. Some people, due to their socioeconomic background, have to drop out of primary school and they can't further to secondary school. Some people only know how to speak their local language. Is again down to educators to innovate, to create content, whether it's written content, audio content, visual content, and to leverage the power of the media, be it your traditional media like your television, your radio, your online media, or even your social media, and begin to get that following, begin to get that interest in education. So I think it's really important that we all start small, we all leverage the tools that we have of technology, and who knows, there's so many stations that are coming up. You'll be surprised. And again, I'll use the example of Lagos State. In the past 1 year, I think I can count up to 3 or 4 different radio stations that have sprung up. Who is stopping us from going to say, okay, I have this idea for creating audio content, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that is going to focus on this particular thing. Some of them might ask you for money for airtime. Some of them might say, look, you come, do the teaching, we'll be able to broadcast it. And based on the following we get, the feedback we get, we might be able to get sponsors, we might be able to get partnerships. And then that will even become another stream of income. But it's not the radio station owner or the TV station owner or the website owner that is going to just sit down and say, okay, right, I'm going to call on this person and that person. Sometimes it's us taking initiative to find our passion for education and see how we can leverage the media to ensure that our students still continue to get learning. So I don't know about you, but 2021 personally is a wake-up call for me to start going back to some of the things I've started in 2020. I think after a while, it did get discouraging with the lockdown, the pandemic, and just the general economic downturn in the country, and that can also have an impact. But then when you think about the wider reach, when you think about the wider implications, if we do not ensure that everyone receives a quality education, whether it's through formal schooling or through the media or hybrid forms, then tomorrow these people are the ones who will grow up without having an education, without being empowered, and will be the ones that will cause a lot of problems, because we've seen the connection between crime and illiteracy and low school enrollment. So it's a collective responsibility for us. For some people, just that media content might be the only thing. Even for adult learners, you see people who have had to finish secondary school, gone to maybe into the factory, gone into paid employment just because they couldn't afford their university fees. But then having the opportunity to do online learning or distance learning still gives them an opportunity to get a qualification and to still get better chances at employment. But if we're not creating, if we're not leveraging the media, then these things will just become very few. I mean, you can count the number of online universities you have in Nigeria. You can count the number of online platforms dedicated to education. And this, when it comes to, say, entertainment, when it comes to sports, when it comes to music, when it comes to politics, there's far more interest because, again, I believe that we as educators, we're not necessarily going forward. So for me personally, is to continue to find ways. And obviously the media is one low-hanging fruit, but for other ways might also be games. You know, when you think about a game, it could be a board game, it could be a tech game, and a tech game can transcend beyond just playing a game on your phone to actually going on the media. That tech game can end up as a radio show or a TV show. That board game can end up as a full-blown reality TV show. I mean, we have Big Brother, but what educational reality TV shows do we have? What educational sitcoms do we have? What educational adaptations do we have of maybe books that were set in a secondary school, in a primary school? I know if I was to start asking each and every one of us will all be very familiar with your Enid Blyton, your Mallory Towers, your Sweet Valley High, Babysitters Club, which have transcended beyond books to television shows, to reality shows, to merchandise. So what are we doing in Nigeria? How many high school stories? You had High School Musical. How many primary school based stories do we have? How many adventurous stories do we have that we're now using in the media, that we're adapting? And that's why I said you might not be able to do a full-blown TV production or a movie, but you can do a 30-second skit. You can do a 5 minutes skit. And that way you're still able to communicate your message, still able to ensure that learning continues. So I'm going to have a look at the time. It's 5:13. So I believe we have about 12 minutes for question. I was hoping to get at least 15 minutes in, but I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Isabella, for that very insightful talk. Thank you so much. So to all of us here, if you have questions for Isabella, please drop your questions on using the Q&A section on the platform, and we'll get to it. But I have some questions of my own. Now, I want us to talk about the terrestrial media for a bit. Yeah, how do educators, bring in a show or content to put on terrestrial media? How do you go across the red tape in the media? Now, I'll give you an instance. I'm an educator. I come up with some content, educational content, and I approach this terrestrial station. I'm like, okay, this is something that I really think will help, young people out there, or however the case may be. And then because of some red tape in the media, they take their idea, and then it now becomes, instead of maybe 30% entertaining and 70% educational, it becomes the other way. They flip it. And so the educational value that the people are getting from that content is not a lot, as opposed to what the education, the person intended in the first place. So how do you get over red tape in the media?
So I think it's very instructive when you remember this saying, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So when it comes to the media, terrestrial media, even your cable, there are different ways. If you have your money, you can go to the station and outrightly buy airtime. And so far as your content does not contravene with any of the NBC code, then what you do with your airtime is really your prerogative, because the TV stations are out to make money. And one way that they make money is through the sale of airtime, not just advertisement. So far as, obviously, you're not going to a mismatch. So if it's a station that's just focused squarely on sports and you go with an educational program, except you're looking at aspects of physical health education, and you're maybe looking at inter-house sports competitions, you're looking at teaching the importance of sports science, and you find an angle. If there's no mismatch between what the station stands for and what your content is representing, or what your content is trying to push, then there won't be an issue. It's almost like you give me the money, we ensure that the quality is up to date, we're not going to get into trouble with NBC, and then you do what you want to do, whether it's 90% educational or 10% entertainment. So the other thing is really important is to do your research, because when I gave the example of Africana Literati, I said we've been on streaming platforms, we've been on cable TV, so Africa Magic, we've been on Mindset. Now, Mindset is totally about education. So a station like Mindset, when you approach them, they won't have an issue with the educational part. What they might have an issue might be with the quality. They might have an issue is maybe the program is very similar to a program that's currently on their platform. So if you've not done your research, then you're probably going to run into troubles. But if you approach a terrestrial station and you have money to pay for airtime, you can more or less ensure that you keep your content as true as possible to what its intent was. Now, another way is to approach brands. So if you don't have the money, but you're able to approach a brand that has maybe its CSR has to do with education. So I can think of your Cowbell, I can think of your Interswitch, and I can think of Maltina. And you go and approach them and say, okay, I have this particular TV show idea and I'm looking for funding. What might happen is they might say no, they might say yes, but they will probably come with what is what suits them better. So because they're providing the money or they're providing the resources, they might want to have a stay in the direction. In maybe you're not the one who will get to present it, maybe they'll hire a team of writers. So in that kind of thing, it's good to just have your options open. But if you want to have the ultimate control over your content, then remember I said that the internet has democratized things. You can go straight to your social media. That way, you're putting out a YouTube video, you're putting out a Facebook video, you're doing an Instagram live, you're doing a Zoom session, and you're not compromising on the content of your production. You are doing exactly what you want to do. It might take some time to build that following. It might not blow. It might not trend like the way your Big Brother or your World Cup or elections might. But if that's what you want to do over time, you keep building and building, and you can leverage on existing emailing lists from schools, from maybe people you've worked with, people you've taught, and people who are in your network. And before you know it, there are a lot of platforms that are constantly looking for content, even without you doing so much. There might be a platform that will just repost that video, or a platform that will just come across it and let somebody that's in power know. So for example, during the lockdown, I started doing some YouTube videos, and I need to do more of those. You can check them out on Correct Student on YouTube. And one of them had to do with what school owners need to do in going digital. Another one had to do with homeschooling. And it was actually somebody, he didn't have as many views, and that's it. You can't be discouraged. They didn't have as many views, and obviously I had limited funds in promoting it. So, and until you get to a certain number of subscribers, you can't monetize it. But nonetheless, I did the video because I felt it was valuable information for school owners, for parents, on what to do during the pandemic. And somebody in Dubai that was working on a Lagos State government website saw one of the videos and told the DG of Office of Education Quality Assurance that, oh, are you aware of Isabella? She's into education. She creates, these YouTube videos. And that was how she sent a DM to me. We started chatting. And from that, I was able to do things for them. Like I was able to host their Read Aloud Lagos Children's Day event, which was televised. And they also had one on Zoom, all because I stuck to my passion. I didn't wait for a terrestrial TV station to give me the opportunity. I knew that there were issues with me going to go and produce my radio show during the lockdown, and advert revenue wasn't coming. But I knew that I could produce something, put it out on YouTube, and eventually the right people will find it. And I mean, that's one door that YouTube video opened. And one of the videos was even featured on one of the Lagos websites, I believe is lagoslearns.com. So if you don't want it, your content diluted, then maybe you should do it the organic way of starting small, starting with your social media, your WhatsApp, your Instagram live, YouTube live, Facebook live, and then build it up to a point where when you go and meet these brands, they are the ones itching to give you their money to say, okay. I mean, when you think of your Taoma, your Maraji, those people have huge followings. So if they met a brand that didn't really want to do something, then they could easily walk away, if it's going to dilute their brand equity. And for some of them, they don't even need TV because they've been able to really exploit the power of social media, that by the time they go to TV, they come with that following that they know, okay, I have this huge following, this is what I want to do. But really, for the media, I'll still say finally that it's he who pays the piper that dictates the tune.
All right. Thank you so much. I have one more question before we go. Now, speaking from a media practitioner's perspective, do you think that it is possible for the media practitioners and educators, more or less the people, media practitioners in programming that are in charge of creating programs for their stations and their platforms? Do you think it's possible for the media people and the educators to have a platform where program creators are privy to what the children are learning in school, so that it informs the kind of programs that they put out there, so that it's not a case of okay, the children are learning something in school and then they come home and they're learning something else. More or less like a continuation of what it is that they're learning in school, creating programs that embody that. Do you think it's possible?
So are you saying, is it possible for people to gather, or is it possible for people to get access to the curriculum? I wasn't sure.
Yes, yes. The media practitioners getting access to the curriculum so that it informs the kind of programs that they create.
So I think the kind of programming varies, and it depends on your target audience. So I gave the example of Africana Literati. I didn't want to create a program that was just specific for maybe an age group. I wanted to create a program that was interesting enough for different members of the family. So something that a young child can appreciate as well as an old person can. So it's a magazine show. So maybe one segment might appeal to one age more than the other. So if you want to go into educational programming, you can go into educational programming that doesn't stay strictly on the curriculum. For example, you can take an aspect of education that you might see a gap. For example, I don't believe we should be waiting till, say, maybe secondary school as an elective subject for people in the arts class to teach something like government and politics. I'm also thinking, what subjects can we start using to teach our children to think, critical thinking? It might not be a subject, but you can create content around that. You can also look at things like leadership, things that are lacking, that are not necessarily covered by the curriculum. You can develop content. But then if you want to stay true to the content of the curriculum, which is also another good idea, and I see that happening with your mindset programming, and in Nigeria, You Lesson by Sim Shagaya is really doing a good job in going back to the curriculum and teaching subjects. And I gave the example of the Lagos state government during the lockdown on their state-owned media platforms. Then I think we need to take initiative as media practitioners or even educators that want to leverage and maximize the media to say, okay, what's in the curriculum? With the power of the internet, you can find the curriculum online. You can get resources. You can look at past questions. You can look at different, all these packages, revision sites where they help people prepare for exams. You can look at government websites. You can even reach out to teacher training programs. Those people are very up to date. But I think we have to do the research to say, okay, what is in the curriculum? Because the curriculum is dynamic. It's not static. What they might have taught you 20 years ago is definitely not what is being taught now. There are some subjects that have gone extinct. There are some that have rebranded, and there are some that are just new due to the times. So do that research and see aspects. Obviously, I think the key thing to know is that what works in the classroom might not necessarily work in the media. Yes, you can teach exactly as you would in the classroom, but then you might be limiting people. So maybe it's time to look at more engaging ways. For example, if you're using an interactive platform, if you're using even a situation where you're teaching, but you have students there who are responding in real life, who are asking questions to almost simulate what a real life classroom setting is. Or you might be using different techniques. So maybe using oral techniques where you're looking at using songs to help people remember things, or you're looking at using multimedia. So making sure that your teaching does not just have notes, but it has videos, it has audio content, it has pictures, it has feedback from your students, so that when it's consumed in the media, it has a higher possibility or a higher retention rate, because in as much as the stations do want to continue to collect your airtime money, at the same time, they want content that will bring viewers to them. So they don't necessarily want boring content. So it's to find ways to take the educational aspect, make it entertaining, but not dissolve it to the point that, like you said, it becomes 30% educational and 70% entertainment.
All right. Oh.